Okay, everyone, welcome to the fifth episode. Really glad to have everyone coming back and watching, or listening, I should say. And again, if you have any comments, please feel free to either mention something on Facebook. You can hit us up in the comment section below this video on YouTube, or if you'd like, you could shoot us an email at abchockeyshow@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your thoughts and love to hear any other comments, hockey related, show related. So please feel free to drop us a message. Tonight's episode, we're going to talk about two topics. Hopefully, we'll have enough time for both. The first one's going to be the New York Rangers, obviously a team that Ben over here loves, but unfortunately, they have not been the team that everyone would hope they were at home. And I think we would like to address, or Ben's going to kind of get into some of the reasons he thinks that that's the case. I mean, right now, one thing to note, I apologize, is that we are recording right now on Wednesday the 22nd. Games are being played right now, so all of the stats and all the standings that we're going to throw out there are as of the end of games on Tuesday the 21st. They do not include tonight's games. So again, if we mention anything, it'll all be as of last night, including last night's game. So anyway, going back to the Rangers, this year, Rangers are 45, 24, and 4 with 94 points. However, when you look at their home and away splits, they have a very, very peculiar split. They have the best away road record at 26, 9, and 1. However, their home record, they're barely 500. They're 19, 15, and 3. And Ben's going to kind of get into some of the reasons that he thinks, or some of the contributors he thinks for that.
Sure. So if I always like to do this when we talked about standing, we talk about records. 19-5-3 means 19 and 18.
Right.
Those are three losses. So they're basically 500, one game above. And if you look at a team that's won 26 on the road, they've won 16 more games than they've lost on the road. They should be they're not even 100 points yet. They should be an over 100 point team if they're anything greater than 500. If you look at the next best team, which is Chicago Blackhawks, their road, we know they're a good team, right? Mm-hmm. Their road record is 23, 11, and 1. Very, very good. Their home record is 24, 9, and 5. They're 10 over 500 at home, and that puts them they're the only team in the West that has clinched a playoff spot. So the Rangers haven't done that yet, and it's very frustrating. Why is this, right? What's the reason for their shortcomings at home? And there's such, I'm going to even call it dominance on the road. Here's my theory. You have a team that is built with speed, built with scoring ability, and built with four lines, and their game right now is to score and score and score. When you get to their home ice, and MSG is MSG, it's not the best ice surface in the world, but it doesn't play to speed necessarily. And the Rangers don't play to speed, and they get very, very bogged down by the crowd at home when they're not doing the things that the crowd thinks they should be doing or the team wants to be doing. So instead of winning games they want to win 4-3 or 5-3, they're caught in these 2-1 games, and they try to get too cute. They make too many passes. They get bogged down by their own expectations of their crowd, and I think it really hurts them when they're at home and they're not able to play their speed game that they really are their team is built upon. And that builds on itself, snowballs into a situation where they don't play well.
So that's interesting. I actually think, and I was giving it some thought today, that in my head there are two contributors. One of them is kind of similar to what you're saying, and I do think that the fans do get on the Rangers a bit, but I've kind of noticed that ever since the quote unquote reconstruction or construction, whatever you want to call it, renovation of MSG, the clientele there are less of the die-hard fans and more of the corporate casual fans, if you will. The increase in the boxes, moving the boxes a lot lower down so that the fans are not as close, increasing ticket pricing. I think that has led to a, if you will, or better said, it has taken away the hostile environment of your regular fans coming to games. And I think that that is a piece that makes it easier for other teams to come in and do well. Now, I agree with you, the Rangers may get a little bit too cute at home, but I do think that the fans who are there are not those die-hard pushing the boards against the guys, getting checked into the corners. You don't have those crazy fans that you see in some of the other stadiums, and I do think it's because a lot of the stuff that goes on at MSG, at least from a who's going to the game, is a lot of the kind of quote unquote businessmen, doing deals, treating clients, having those types of meetings, if you will, or just events there, as opposed to the casual, the more dedicated fan who has had season tickets for 20 plus years. So I think that's
sure. So
sorry,
yeah. Go ahead, finish.
So I was just gonna say, so that I think is the first contributor, which is similar to kind of what you were saying. I can't comment on the quality of ice. I've never skated on it, nor would I really be able to tell good ice versus bad ice outside of the difference between indoor hockey and the outdoor classic stuff. So
what we do know is that the Barclays has the worst ice.
Barclays has the worst everything. I mean, the views are terrible there. The ice,
fans are terrible.
The team is terrible. I mean, like everything that you could want from a hockey arena, you don't get there. So, for better or worse, I think they need to go back to the island. But let's not dive into that too deeply.
Right.
The other thing that I think is really, really plaguing the Rangers, and we can get into this, is that I think that Alain Vigneault, who I do want to caveat and say I think he is a good coach. I think there's no reason to change coaches, but I don't think he's as cerebral or as not technical, but I think he has an issue with some of the more technical aspects of the game, aka the line matchups. So when I look at my team, the Penguins, I know that we struggle on the road because the last shift change is so important to the Penguins. We do a great job of getting the matchups we want. When we can get Crosby on versus a second or third line, or we can get Malkin even versus the first line, or really get the pairings that we want against the other team, we do a lot better, and it's very clear from our home and our away records. The Rangers, I think, Alain Vigneault, when he's at home, tries to almost double think, triple think, who should I match up? And he doesn't really coach to hockey. I think he does a really bad job sometimes of finding matchups that work best, as opposed to just letting his players play and getting the guys who are having good nights on more ice time. When he's away, he doesn't have to worry about that last change, so he could really just coach to his strengths, to his feel of the game, and not worry about do these guys match up well with their first line, their second line, their third line. And I think that that's a bigger contributor to why the Rangers aren't doing well on the road. And the further proof to that is their record in the past on the road. So if we look at this season, we've already talked about the 19-15-3 at home and 26-9-1. Just to kind of put that in perspective, at home they have a 51% win percentage, and they average 1.1 points a game, whereas points per game, meaning in the standings. Whereas away, they've got a 72% winning percentage, and they average 1.4, almost 1.5 points per game. If you look at the past 4 seasons, which are the seasons that Alain Vigneault has been the Rangers coach, so the 13-14, 14-15, 15-16, and then this season, only 1 year did they have a better win percentage and points per game average at home than they did on the road, and that was last year. Last year, they went 27-10-4, which was a 66% win percentage and a 1.4 point per game average. And away, they were a 46% win percentage and averaged just about 1 point per game. The other 2 seasons, so in the 13 and 14, their away win percentage was 61%, where home was 49%. And then in 14-15, their win percentage was 68% on the road and only 61% at home. And the point per game average was also better on the road, those two. So 3 out of the 4 seasons he's coached, they've been worlds better on the road than they have at home. And I think that this is a big contributor. And you could also argue that the arena, when they went through their renovations in 13, has contributed to this as well.
Well, those things coincided, interestingly enough, that the arena over 3 seasons, I think, during the 13-14 season was when it was fully renovated for the first time. If I remember correctly, I think they started actually 8 or 9 games on the road that season in order to accommodate the renovation.
Yeah, it was something silly like that. They had a ton of road games that first bunch.
Right, which is good for them apparently. but the whole season there. You know what? It's interesting. I'm not as hard on Vigneault as you are. I think he's a good coach. Is he a great coach? He hasn't won a cup. He's been there twice. I think he's a very accomplished, very, very good coach. I don't know how much the matchups play into it. I do have a theory in general, which kind of goes towards what you said, that home ice in hockey is not as important as it once was. That's part of, you have tons of newly renovated arenas. Those, as was what I call for the Rangers, the blue seats, the blue seat fans, which are the blood and guts guys who are up there spending, they're working hard. The thing they do is go to Ranger games and go crazy and drink. Those guys don't go in anymore. They can't afford it. They can't get there. You have the corporate guys down low that could care less if the Rangers win or lose half the time. I think that plays into a lot of arenas. You don't have a home ice advantage like you did, which helps the Rangers in this season's playoffs, right? Assuming, and I'm hoping this, and I think that's the way the numbers are working out, they're going to be the first wild card. As far as wild card goes, by the way, the Rangers have 94 points. Toronto, which is the second wild card now, is 81. Can't imagine they're gonna make the second wild card, the Rangers. And their only bet is to make the third seed as opposed to the first wild card, which I don't want them to do. And they're 6 points shy of that. So they're going to cross over and be on the road. They're going to be a wild card team. They're playing on the road in the playoffs. I'm happy with that. There's no home ice advantage for them.
Yeah.
For anybody.
Look, I would agree with you about the Rangers being on the road. I would also agree that Toronto's got 11 games left. They're not going to be, taking over the Rangers. So I would agree with you. They're going to be the first wild card. I agree with you. It helps be on the road. I think one of the reasons that we're not seeing as huge of an importance on the home advantage, the last change, is because teams are getting a lot deeper than they were back in the day. I still think that, a handful of the good teams with some of the more elite skill players prefer certain matchups over others, and I know it's true for the Penguins. I know it's true for, some of the other teams that when they get matched up poorly, that they don't do as well. But I do hear what you're saying, that, home advantage, if you will, is not as important for the Rangers. But talking about the playoffs is a nice transition into our next section, and that would be the current setup. And for those of you listening at home who are not used to this quote unquote new format for the playoffs, I'll kind of run it down for you guys pretty quickly. The way it works is there are 4 divisions. In the East, you've got the Metro and the Atlantic, and in the West, you have the Central and the Pacific. The top 3 teams in each of the divisions, so the top 3 teams in the Metro and the top 3 teams in the Atlantic, points-wise, they get ranked 1 through 3 in each of their divisions in a bracket. So if you picture, let's say Metro's the top left, Atlantic's the bottom left, the Central will be the top right, and the Pacific will be the bottom right. So figure a 4-tiered bracket for the playoffs. So the top 3 teams in each division make it. And then between the 2 teams, so in the East, for example, the next 2 teams, once you remove those 6 teams from in both the Metro and the Atlantic, get the 2 wild cards. Some years it comes out of one division, like last year. Some years it comes out of 1 and 1, like this year is looking right now, 1 in the Atlantic, 1 in the Metro. So the way it would work right now is the Capitals, who are the number 1 overall seed in the East, so they've got the better record than Montreal, who's the 1 seed in the Atlantic. They would play the lowest seeded wild card, in this case Toronto, and the Montreal would play the highest seeded wild card, which would be the Rangers, and then the 2-3 in each division, Penguins and Columbus right now, and then Ottawa and Boston would play each other, the winner playing the 1-4 matchup, if you will, at the top of in the brackets and going through. My issue with that is as follows. Right now, in the Metro Division, what would happen is the Capitals would play Toronto. The assumption would be the Capitals would win. The Penguins would play Columbus, hoping that the Penguins would win. I think if they're the 2, they have a much better chance of winning. If they have the 3, it's a lot harder for them to win. But either way, then the winner of that game, or that series, has to play the Capitals. So basically, the top 3 teams in the East, which right now are the Capitals, Penguins, and Columbus, have to go through all of each other before they play anyone else to get into the Eastern Conference Finals, whereas the Rangers, who right now by point ranking are the 4th team in the East, would be able to go through the entire Atlantic, which is a lot weaker of a division. So I actually have a change to this, and love to hear your thoughts and see how this would play out. So what I think is, you can't just go a straight 1 through 8 ranking based on points, because that completely eliminates any importance placed on the division, right? The whole point of shifting this new playoff format was to enhance the rivalries and give a bigger importance to the winning your division and playing within your division. So what I would suggest is as follows. I am saying that what you do is the winner of each division, regardless of how many points they have, they get the 1 and the 2 seed in their respective conference. So in this case, the Capitals have 102 and the Montreal Canadiens have 91. They would be the 1 and 2 respectively within the East. The 3 through 8 would get ranked based off of points. And so basically, you're only guaranteeing one team per division. Everything else, it could be one team, it could be 7 from the Metro and 1 from the Atlantic, or vice versa, because it's purely based on points, and only the winner of the division is guaranteed the playoffs. There, I think we are able to keep the importance of the division, but also rewarding teams for doing well throughout a really long season. Additionally, I think the ranking would go, you'd have the 1-8 at the top, and the 2-7 would be at the bottom. The 3-4 would also be at the bottom. Sorry, the 3-4. The 3-6 would be at the bottom, and then the 4-5 would be at the top. So, as an example, it happens to work out this way that both in the East and the West, the 1 and the 8 are the same. So the Capitals play Toronto no matter what. However, the next piece of that, in the new breakout, instead of the Penguins playing Columbus, Montreal would be the number 2. They would play Boston because they're the 7th. They have the least number. They have the second least. They've got 82 points. Then the 3-6 would be the Penguins versus the Senators, and then the 4-5 would be Columbus versus the Rangers. And then what would happen is the Capitals, Toronto, would play the winner of the Columbus Rangers. The winner of the Penguins versus the Senators would play the winner of the Canadiens and Boston. This way, you're really rewarding teams for doing well, with an easier, not an easier, but a clearer path to the cup, or at least to the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals. Oddly enough, the way it works out in the West is Chicago would still play the Predators, and the Oilers and the Ducks would still play each other. The other game would be flip-flops. The Wild would play the Flames, and then the Sharks, the Wild would play the Flames, and the Blues would play the Sharks. But either way, I think that's a better way to do it. Now, the question is, do you reseed? I think reseeding, it's a little confusing. This one already kind of rewards. So, for example, if the Penguins then won, does Montreal get knocked out of the 2 seed because they're not the highest number of points? I think you kind of keep the seeding. So, unlike what we used to do in the NHL, we'd have reseeding. But I think that this is a really good way of doing it. It would kind of solve the issues of not getting rewarded for doing well in the regular season. At the same time, it still gives importance to winning your division and doing well within your own division.
So interesting. I'll tell you my first reaction to hearing this is I don't love it. The reason I don't love it is...
That's because the Rangers would have a lot harder time getting through the playoffs. Is why you don't love it.
No one trusts Columbus in the playoffs. They're crap. The reason I don't love it is I don't like... specifically this season, you have Washington, Pittsburgh, Columbus, and the Rangers, who all have more points and one more in a harder division than Montreal. Or we both agree that the Eastern Conference is very good, but the better part of the Eastern Conference is Metro.
Yep.
Montreal's played, based on the fact that they're playing divisional games more often, has played worse teams. And you're rewarding them by getting the number 2 seed in an easier drive to the playoffs. I do like rewarding the division winner ahead of just making the points in your division because, again, Ottawa at 88 is making the playoffs when the Islanders at 78 are the 5th seed in their better. Toronto at 81 in the playoffs and the Islanders at 78 are the 5th seed in their division, and they have basically no shot if they do that. So, what do you think of this little tweak that I'm thinking out loud? What if you kept that? The division winner makes the playoffs, but you seed based on points after that.
So
So instead of
what you're saying is that let's say it worked out somehow that there were 8 teams that had more points than the division winner and the other one. You'd only take the top 7.
let's say the top 8 teams are in the Metropolitan based on points, but
Right.
you still guarantee one winner, the winner of the division from the Atlantic, because they're the division winner. Everybody else, they're not the division winner. I'm sorry, you had a nice season, but you did not come close.
I hear you, but then I don't know. It gives less. I feel like you still lose the value of winning your division.
You do, but you can't reward winning a division based on the fact that you have a worse division.
Yeah, the only thing is you can't control who's in your division. It's not your fault that the other team isn't good. Now, granted, if the other teams aren't good and you are, you'll have a lot more points. You'll be able to rack up a ton of points. You know, basically, like if everyone else has 70 points, I should have 110 easy, right?
Right.
Someone's got to win the games. But, I mean, at the same time, I don't know. I feel like you have to get something for winning. So what if we kind of tweak both and say, all right, if you win your division, you get ranked based off points, but you're the home team in that first round.
I'm not against that. In the first round only, though.
The first round only.
And then if you happen to be, I mean, in the situation we just talked about, they're the 8th, the 8th seed, and the 8th is the number of points. But let's say they're the 5th seed, and if they play against the 6, 7, 8, they'll get home ice in the next rounds.
So my only issue is that let's say they're the 8, you can't take away home from the 1.
Of course not. No, you can't go home from the 1. If
No, but I'm saying, let's say the winner, and we got to wrap this up soon. I don't want to cut this off. Maybe we move on.
We'll continue to the next one. Also,
continue the next one. But if I win the Atlantic, but I've got the least number of points, so I come in as the 8th seed, I can't get home court against the other number 1.
No, you cannot. You cannot take home ice away from the number 1. That's true.
So maybe in all instances, except where you're the 8, because the odds are you're not going to be the 8 anyway. All right, let's pick this up next time because again we're running out of time here. Would love to hear everyone's thoughts on this. Ben and I will kind of pick this up next episode in episode 6. Again, we appreciate everyone. If you want to shoot us an email, abchockeyshow@gmail.com. Like us, follow us on Facebook. Don't forget to listen, subscribe and like our YouTube channel. Everyone have a great night, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Take care.